Hey everyone, real quickly, I wanted to go over this worksheet with you. This is for Monday, and I have uploaded this into Canvas in the module so you can print this out and fill it out. This is a really important step. It's a first step in the next essay that we're going to start writing in a day or so, basically. I find that people have a lot of questions about this, so rather than just upload it and give it to you, I'd like to have a chance to explain what I mean by some of these items on this worksheet. Okay, so let's work through it together. Number one, go online, find a fairy tale, and read it. Note, do not choose a Disney movie. Now, people get confused by this. That doesn't mean you can't choose a fairy tale that's been covered by Disney. That's okay. But I want you to find the oldest version of the fairy tale you can, and it has to be a text. It cannot be a movie, okay? You're not pulling from a movie to prove your point on this essay. You're pulling from a text where you have actual dialogue that you can quote from. So it's important that it's a text. If you want to do Cinderella, that's great. You can do Cinderella, but it's not the Disney movie version of Cinderella. It's an older text. Now, as far as finding these, it should be really simple. If you just go to Google and type in fairy tales online, you will get literally hundreds of choices that you can choose from, okay? So this part you should have already done. I told you the last time to go online in preparation for this essay and find an essay and read it. Hopefully you did that already. If you didn't, no problem, just you can do it now. Now, number two, what are some major themes, and by that I mean big ideas, that are found in the fairy tale? So the fairy tale that you chose to read and worked with, you need to find some themes in it. And stories have more than one theme. You know, there's usually several themes working together. When I say theme, I don't just mean something that happened in the story, okay? For example, working with Little Red Riding Hood is an example. The wolf ate Little Red Riding Hood. That's not necessarily a theme. That's just something that happened within the story, one event. But it's not a big idea. The whole story is not about the wolf ate Little Red Riding Hood, is it? So, when I'm talking about themes, I'm talking about ideas. An idea that is present or argued for throughout the entirety of the story. For example, let's go back to Little Red Riding Hood again. A theme could be giving children more independence. When is it the right time to give children more independence? That could be a theme. I could write a whole essay about that because I think there are elements in that story throughout the whole story that are talking about that very issue, okay? They're informing that issue of children having independence. So that's what I mean by theme. Notice I've got 4 spaces there. I really want you to try to fill in those 4 spaces. Even though the first one you write is probably the one you're going to work with, I want you to give me 3 others, because you might find soon that that one that you chose to work with just isn't working. Maybe you just don't have enough evidence as much as you thought to fill a whole essay about it. So I want you to give me 4 here, okay? So you've got alternatives. If 1 or 2 don't work out, there's another one you can write about. 3, choosing one of the themes from above. So again, looking at these guys here, A, B, C, D, I want you to choose one of them, okay? So whichever one's your favorite one, you're going to work with that when you're doing number 3. So if my theme was allowing children to have more independence, that means when I'm doing number 3 here, I have in mind the idea of children having more independence. The theme is going to inform my questions here. That's what I'm saying. So choosing one of the themes from above, create questions, one at each level of comprehension, and we just talked about those in a video lecture, about this fairy tale's theme from the following categories: inferential, evaluative, appreciative. Note that we are skipping literal questions. Remember when we talked about the 4 levels of comprehension? The first one was literal, and I told you back then that it doesn't lead to a very deep understanding, and that's why we're skipping it. It's only involved in giving us data, facts, things that we can see that the author is directly telling us, and that doesn't lead to deeper understanding. It leads to these other questions. So there is no literal question. So you are going to come up with an inferential question, an evaluative question, and an appreciative question, okay? These 3 guys, you're coming up with a question at each level. Use that handout that I gave you. I gave you that handout for the levels of comprehension. Print that thing out and have it handy when you're coming up with these questions. Use the terms that it uses. It'll guide you in coming up with your questions so you know you're really in that category when you're coming up with your questions, okay? So remember, when you're coming up with these 3 questions, you have one theme in mind. The one that you chose from up here. I chose independence, so independence, independence, independence. That's what I have in mind when I'm coming up with these questions. These are just questions. They're not answers, at least not yet, okay? That's coming later on. Just come up with the questions for now. And then number 4, using the previous 3 questions as topic sentences, compose a thesis statement. Now that might sound a little bit confusing. Here's what I'm actually asking you to do. I want you to come up with a thesis statement about your essay, an argument that you're going to make that covers all 3 of these questions. Now that sounds difficult, more difficult than it actually is, and here's why. If you go back up to number 2 again, whatever theme you chose, that's what's holding those 3 questions together. As long as you had that theme in mind when you were creating 1, 2, 3 questions down here, well, they already have a connection. And that probably is your thesis statement. So if my theme was giving children more independence, my thesis statement is going to be about that. I could say the author is making the argument that we shouldn't give children independence too soon. Now, do you see how that's talking about the theme that I had? My theme was about children and independence. I put that into a statement, an argument. That's the argument I'm going to make. I think the author is telling us blah, 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 blah about children, independence, blah, blah, blah. Do you see how that works? So as long as these 3 questions all have to do with the same theme, have that theme in mind when you're coming up with these. It shouldn't be a problem when you get to number 4. And that's it. That is the worksheet, okay? So work through it and then keep it handy. You're going to turn this thing in when you turn in the final essay. All of this is going to be due this Sunday by midnight, same as usual, all right? So that's it for now.